Couples of Reddit. What's the most unromantic thing that's happened between the two of you that actually is a stronger indication of love than others might think? My husband got diarrhea so bad that it went everywhere in our bathroom, and I accidentally sat in it. I cleaned everything off, and jumped in the shower to clean his poop off while he was still going. I started puking in the shower from the awful seafood food poisoning smells. He says his time for me is us waiting in a drive-through line, and I sneezed a giant snot rocket all over my shirt and freaked out trying to hide it and find a tissue. I fell down some steps and broke both my arms. My husband wiped my butt and helped me shower wash my hair. For weeks. For better or worse. That was definitely filed under worse. When we'd been married about 10 years. 2 little kids. Jobs not paying enough to cover daycare and bills. And were having the sort of fight that these stresses can precipitate. It was a nasty one. We were not holding back with unkind things said to each other. And then the phone rang. My dad was in the hospital 1,200 miles away. He'd had a stroke. Docs were unsure whether he'd live. The fight stopped and she told me to get in the car and go to the airport. She'd have tickets waiting for me at the counter. She'd call my boss and explain that I was flying across the country. Take how much time I needed. She would take care of the house and the kids and to not worry about anything but taking care of my family. Dad made it a few years after that, but now I know that no matter how hard life gets, and however much 2 volatile pig-headed jerks fight and yell, she isn't just on my team, she is my team. We'll be married 30 years this year. Life happens, and sometimes people aren't perfect, but when the world is against me, that little woman will grab my arm and we'll roar together, and nothing will break us. I grew up with my grandparents BC. Both my parents had to work various jobs simultaneously, so my grandfather was my world. I took care of him during his last 5 years. When he became bedridden, I tried to visit him as often as I could. He lived with an elderly aunt who fed him, but needed me to bathe him and, eventually, change his diapers and so on. Early in our relationship, my now wife would come over sometimes. One time I got to his house and found his fridge full and him watching TV, eating a bowl of ice cream. My wife had gone a few hours before me without telling me. 6 months later I proposed. My boyfriend made me go to the gynecologist to talk about getting an ablation after watching me struggle from crippling pain and bleeding every month for years. He said not to worry about money or anything else besides solving my problem. Fast forward 2 months and I got a call from my surgeon. Apparently I missed the fact that they did a biopsy when they removed my polyps and found uterine cancer. Had I been stubborn and continued to ignore my miserable periods for years, who knows what could have happened to me. No one expects uterine cancer in someone under 30. He held me while I cried, took me to every appointment, and helped me when I recovered after my hysterectomy. That dude is my rock. Why am I reading this? I don't even have a girlfriend. Edit. Thank you so much for the love. This is actually my first time to post and I am pretty happy with the community here. The last few years before my mother passed away, she had horrible diarrhea and had lost most of her mobility. So it was not uncommon for her to be unable to make it out of the bed, much less to the bathroom. Every time this would happen, my old man would get up, get her to the bathroom and cleaned up, then go back into the bedroom, pull the sheets off their bed, put them in the wash, and finish off with putting fresh clean sheets down. Oh, and he wasn't in much better health himself, but he never complained. Man, all of these are like medical conditions and crazy stuff like that. One time my girlfriend just said she wanted to see me but didn't want to talk to anybody after a rough day at work. So she came to my house and sat in my bed with me while I played video games until we both fell asleep. Didn't say a word other than hey when she got there, and alright, bed, love you. My boyfriend texted me one day when he was at the gym that he believed his rectum had prolapsed. No idea how, but I started googling what we needed to do about it. I read that if it wasn't serious, you could just push it back in before going to a doctor, instead of heading to the ER. So what do? Put on a pair of gloves, lube my finger up, and kneel in front of him while he's lying on the bed attempting to push part of his rectum back into his anus. Turns out it was just a giant fucking hemorrhoid when he went to the doctors the next day. But I think that was a moment in our relationship where it was established that we both had complete comfort with each other. If your partner can try and shove part of your rectum up into your ass, then nothing is really too disgusting or gross to discuss. My husband and I often end up showering together, and one night as he was about to get in he said, "Never mind. I'll clean up and get some food ready for you and let you shave your asshole in peace." My wife and I came to understand that we can sleep apart for the sake of comfort and good rest, without it being an expression of emotional distance. My husband's family lived across the country and used to send us boxes of their almost new, good quality clothes that they no longer wore. The men clothes were great for hubby and sons, but the female clothes were always a bit too small as I had gained a lot of weight since they had seen me last. My husband always felt so bad for me. Then one time, my hubby lifted up a pair of pants out of the box and said happily, "These will fit you. They are huge." I still remember the look of horror that passed over his face once he'd realized what he'd said, but I loved the fact that he was happy for me getting a new pair of pants. I have a now 12-year-old daughter who is not biologically his, however she calls him dad now and he always refers to her as his daughter. When she was about 10 he'd been moved in about 6 months. We were settling into things as a family. I was working and they were home hanging out and she got her first period. I had briefly had a couple small discussions, enough that she knew what was happening, but was pretty unsure what to do. So he handed her some toilet paper, told her the basic girl trick of putting it in her underwear and took her to the store. He helped her pick out some pads, detoured to the ice cream, chocolate, chips and bakery section and picked up Junior Advil just in case. They settled in on the sofa. He explained the basics of how to use it, showed her a quick YouTube video, made up a hot water bottle for her, popped her dirty clothes on to soak, and they snuggled and she talked about it and they googled answers if he didn't have them. I came home to them having a nap on the sofa looking like a slumber party exploded and a happy child. Probably one of the moments I've loved him the most. Edit. Holy crap, I went to bed and this blew up. I was expecting it to get buried with how busy the thread already was. I'll try to respond to everyone. My so puked in the parking lot on our first date, before we even got into the restaurant. I thought she was having second thoughts because she just got out of a horrible relationship. No, she was on her period and it was bad enough where she would puke. We're married now. My first child was a stillborn, holding my wife while we both bawled our eyes out as she vomited on me and bled all over the bathroom floor. It's a memory that will stick with me forever. I had an ingrown hair cyst surgically removed from my butt crack. My sew had to help me stuff new gauze in the 1.5-inch hole in my flesh so it could heal properly. I bent over the bed while she removed the gauze used during surgery and she did her best. I ended up having to pull it out myself in the bathroom, leaving blood all over the floor and myself. Even after the trauma of trying to remove the first gauze, she came back to help me get the new gauze in place after I cleaned up. We called it my double butthole. Edit. Yes, it was a pilonidal cyst. The hairball the surgeon pulled out was the size of a quarter. Edit 2. I showed my girlfriend the comments and she said, "OMG, that really was traumatic for everyone involved. He was an amazing dad when I had postpartum anxiety and depression. And he'd never been around babies before or even had siblings. He was just a natural. He never resented me and just took care of us. When Prozac made it way worse, my shitty doctor wouldn't return my calls. He got us all dressed and we went and sat in that doctor's office until he would see us. He was my biggest advocate. It was so hard on me to see him bonding with our baby and being a kick-ass dad while I couldn't muster any feelings for the baby and just wanted to disappear. But all is good now and I am still so happy that our daughter has such an awesome dad." We were actually on a romantic getaway weekend in the mountains. I was still breastfeeding at the time. Right as we were getting ready for dinner, I had to break it to him that I had a plugged duct and it was threatening to ruin our whole night, if not the whole weekend. I was very uncomfortable and I was worried about getting mastitis. My man went to town on that boob and sucked the plug out. I can't describe how awkward it is to breastfeed your own husband, but he had absolutely no qualms about helping me out. Nursing my late husband through squamous cell carcinoma and thyroid cancer. Diagnosed end of November. Went into hospice. At home. End of February. Died the 21st of March. I took time off work most days just to be with him and feed him and give him his meds. I had to convince him that he wouldn't become addicted to morphine since he was actually in hospice, so he finally started taking it every time I offered it. My mom, an RN and cancer research nurse for 52 years, couldn't believe how much I stepped up and took over my husband's care. He is the love of my life. All I can do for him is make him comfortable, so that was my priority. I am going to do everything in my power to make him comfortable through the end of a fucking asshole of a disease. He died at home, but we had been able to say I love you, thank you, and goodbye. I miss him every day even 4 years later.